and we always went to Sunday supper. And I would be telling him about my week. Tell me about your week, son. And I'd tell him about the stores I visited. And boy, if they would just merchandise this store better, or if they would staff it properly, or if they'd clean it up, I'd say these things. He said, son, you sound like an entrepreneur. And I said, I've never really thought about it. He said, well, there's those that talk about it and those that do it. He said, I think you're a doer.
Welcome to The Parallel Entrepreneur, where we explore how founders, creators, and visionaries bring multiple ventures and parts of themselves to life. In Season 2, we're keeping the conversations real and wide-ranging about alignment, creativity, and the messy, beautiful art of building in parallel. It's not about doing more. It's about letting our ideas work together. This is The Parallel Entrepreneur. Conversations on the Parallel Entrepreneur podcast are about people, and most people think that we're talking about building a business. Every now and then, you run across someone who's really building something else entirely, something that lives a little deeper in the community. Andy Marshall is one of those people. From his early days in the grocery business to founding A. Marshall Hospitality, his work has consistently centered around creating places that bring people together where the experience matters just as much as the product. And over time, that approach hasn't just worked, it's scaled without losing what made it special in the first place. This is a conversation about building with intention and what it takes to grow without disconnecting from your roots. Andy, welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled to sit down across the table from you again.
I know, it's been a while since we've been actually face to face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
wow.
Good to see you.
I'm super excited about my very first experience when I moved to Nashville, when I got out into the countryside and discovered this place called Puckett's Grocery.
Oh, amen.
It was 2000 when I moved to Nashville. And you started that company in 98?
98.
So I'm tootling through the beautiful countryside of Middle Tennessee. Don't even really know where Leaper's Fork is. I just ran into it and discovered it and went inside. And one of your innovations was to bring music and a real approachable experience into a grocery store and a diner and integrate those things. And I was looking around going, what in the heck is going on here? Tell the audience, tell our friends how you became an entrepreneur and brought this vision began that story, that began this, today's evolution of Puckett's.
Yeah, so, to think about when I knew I was an entrepreneur, right out of college. You remember the college recruiters come when you're finishing up college and you apply for jobs before you ever finish. And I applied with Lever Brothers, selling soap. And I had been in the grocery business my whole life.
Selling soap.
And I never thought that's where I was heading. I always thought I'd go back into the grocery stores. But anyway, I took that job, and as I was selling soap around Middle Tennessee, and I would come home, my dad always had a Sunday supper, and we always went to Sunday supper. And I would be telling him about my week. Tell me about your week, son. And I'd tell him about the stores I visited. And boy, if they would just merchandise this store better, or if they would staff it properly, or if they'd clean it up, I'd say these things. He said, son, you sound like an entrepreneur. And I said, I've never really thought about it. He said, well, there's those that talk about it and those that do it. He said, I think you're a doer. And at age 26, I bought my first grocery store. So I've been an entrepreneur most all my life. But the Leaper's Fork journey, I had built my grocery stores to 4 grocery stores, and I just didn't see a long-term vision for the independent grocer. I'd won Grocer of the Year. I'd been given the Spirit of America Award by Congress, by some innovation in the grocery business. But as I get to a certain pinnacle, people want you to mentor, right? And I was mentoring, and I was talking to some generational businesses, third generation, and they still had debt. And somehow that shook me to think, how is it that you took this over from your dad took it over from his dad, and y'all still have debt 40 years later? And the grocery business.
That's a great question, right?
Right. And so the grocery business is one that it takes a tremendous amount of capital investment, because you have millions of dollars in inventory, and then you have a bunch of equipment, and the equipment during that time was changing and innovating, and so you were constantly having to reinvest, and I just didn't see a way out of debt. And I felt the urge to get out of debt, so I sold my 4 grocery stores. And I'd like to say I found Leaper's Fork, but Leaper's Fork really found me. A couple of people called me about this little market there. Hey, you used to be in the grocery business. Come out here and buy this grocery store and help us. Well, it wasn't really a grocery store. It was 2 gas pumps and about 2,000 square foot of shelving, 8-foot meat counter, 8-foot produce. It was tiny. But I thought, I could fix this up. I can clean it up, fix it up, and I may flip it. But in that journey, that entrepreneurial spirit kicks in, and you start thinking, how do I make this work? People are so mobile now, they're not going to buy groceries here. They're going to drive right by you and go to the big, Kroger's or Publix or wherever was more convenient and could offer more. So how do I make it work? Well, I started cooking, and the cooking became a calling card. And then, how do we get more people to experience the cooking? We have all these beautiful songwriters in our community, and the relationships led to the dinner program and music, and then it set us on a course that really changed the rest of my career.
Yeah.
We now sit there with 11 restaurants across Middle Tennessee and 1 in Alabama, and never thought from the 2 gas pumps that's where we were heading.
I remember that there was a movie night, and we would go out back and watch movies and listen to live music in a grocery store, and you'd have some of that awesome barbecue brisket. I mean, and it was so small. That was like this, maybe so quaint and personal and approachable. You've managed to make that feeling continue in the new restaurants that you've opened. How do you keep that formula going?
Right. So, when you go from 1 to 2, that's the big question, right? Is it duplicatable? Do we really have something special, or is it only special for here? And that question was rolling around in our head when we started seeing people sitting in the parking lot with their tailgates down or their trunks open because they couldn't get in the restaurant, and they were eating our food sitting in the parking lot. And I told my wife, I said, we either need to expand, or we're gonna die on our success right here. People aren't going to do this forever, right? The inconvenience of something that cool. And
you and Jan have been married for
42 years this October.
So it really was, you were newlyweds, right?
Yeah, kind of, sort of, yeah.
Hey, honey,
we keep it newlywed all the time.
That's good.
Yeah, so then we found that location in Franklin, and lo and behold, it became duplicatable. It was different, but still had that feel of, it used to be a grocery store and now it's a restaurant kind of question when people came in, and they found that fascinating, and almost like Mom and Pa had to push everything to the 4 walls and then had to put some tables in to survive. And truly, I mean, that's kind of, in truth, that's what happened, but it became now a concept.
I used to ride my bike. Jenny, my wife Jenny, and I would ride our bikes from Brentwood down to Leaper's Fork, and the destination was lunch at Puckett's.
Yeah.
And then there became like the Harley Davidson group and the bike clubs, it's like a destination.
Yeah.
It strikes me you were in the grocery business, which I perceive to be a very difficult business.
It is.
Gigantic big box retailers. You're an award-winning grocer. Then you pick what I also perceive to be an extremely difficult business, which is restauranting.
Right.
Restauranting. You're a restaurateur.
Yeah.
Why do you like big challenges? And what is it about these experiences? It's just you got there. You can do anything.
Right.
If you can run a 500-person organization, you can pretty much do anything. But you didn't pick easy businesses.
Yeah. I've had many people like yourself look me in the eye and say, "Why would you go from the second most failed rate business for an entrepreneur and go to the first rated fail rate business as an entrepreneur?" I never looked at it that way. I was raised in the grocery business. When my dad took me in at age 13, he was a grocer, and I just wanted to please him and thank him for taking me in, and so it became just do good at whatever you do kind of mentality. And so I was really good at being a grocer. And then later, when I built my business and sold it, Leaper's Fork really found me. It really was just going to be a short-term project, but then that entrepreneur side kicks in, and I started following passion, and that passion then became, I love to cook. I always did. All my grocery stores, I always wanted to have scratch delis. I didn't want to buy it in a box and put it in a box and put my label on it. I wanted to cook it. I wanted it to be fresh, and so I started doing that out in Leapers, and
Here we are.
once I put that smoker out in the parking lot, and I'd go out there and open that lid every time there was traffic, and people would pull in and say, "What are you cooking?" It became a fun
great.
thing.
It smelled great out there.
Absolutely did.
Before people really understood to just go ahead and cook outside, you were doing it.
Yeah.
Let's drill in a little bit on this. You're grateful for your dad taking you in, and you mentioned mentorship already in our conversation, and those are some of my favorite topics are how you mentor, how you've been mentored. But my dad taking me in. That's an unusual way to describe your beginning journey.
Yeah. So my mother and father divorced when I was 2 years old. He was coming out of the military, and at 2 years old they were divorced. So I never knew him from that standpoint. I mean, he was gone in the military, comes home, they get divorced, and so she's a single mom raising 3 kids. I had a brother 7.5 years, almost 8 years older than me, and a sister 4 years older than me. So they had a little more understanding of my dad than I did. And then in those days, the dads didn't get a whole lot of rights. I saw him 2 days at Christmas and 2 weeks of summer, and that was all the relationship I had with him. And so over the time of living with my mother, she remarries. My brother leaves the house at age 15. I'm 7 because he can't take it, whatever that was. I didn't understand it. And then my sister became a runaway when she was 13 years old and got into the hippie movement. And then the abuse started on me. And he worked through each of us. And I didn't really see that in my brother or my sister. I just was safe at that point. When I became unsafe and it became my turn, it was not good. So there were several things that happened that kind of kept me sane. The Boys and Girls Club. A police officer picked me up on the streets of Memphis when I was 10 and told my mother he didn't need to be out on the streets during the day. He needs to be in school, and then he needs to be at Boys and Girls Club, and you need to pick him up there. And so having Boys and Girls Club pour into me was an important part that kept me through that period. And then later, just friends that took me in when things were tough at home, let me sleep at their house and different things. But when I was turning 13, I may have even been 12 at the time, and I was growing, and I had found the Lord, and I found this new boldness in the Lord, and I started pushing back on the abuse, and got in a real physical fight with my stepfather. And that day when I came home, I didn't want to come home until she was home, thinking that would soften it a little. Mm-hmm. And I walked in the door, and they were sitting at the kitchen table. And she said, "Andy, sit down." And I sat down, and I thought I was going to get hey, you need to be respectful. Y'all can't do this kind of talk. And he slammed his hands down on the table, almost flipped the table up. He hit it so hard, and he said, "Either he goes or I go." and it caught my mother off guard, and she looked over at me and she said, "Do you have a place to go?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." So they made me call my dad in front of them, and he had already told me at Christmas that I'd asked him then when I was 12 if I could come live with him. He said, "We just can't take you in. We just can't do it, son. You need to work it out." And so I had already knew his answer, but when I called him, I kind of faked my way through the conversation for my parents, for my mother and stepfather to think that he was going to come get me, and said, he didn't want to pick me up here. He wants to pick me up at Troy's because he didn't want any kind of confrontation. So I packed my bags. I went and started living with a friend, and it was about 4 days later he called to check on me. My mother said, "I thought you picked him up." He said, "No, I told him I couldn't take him in." She said, "Well, I know where he'll be if you want to come talk to him." Well, he came, and with my stepmother, they drove up. They lived in Franklin at that time, and they drove up and came and talked to me, and my dad said, "I don't know how we're going to do it, but we'll figure it out. Come on, you're coming home with us." So
Yay.
That's how it started.
Yay.
And then you land softly in Williamson County, and your life changed. The schools and friends that I've made that are still, I'm still best friends with the very first person I met in Williamson County. Where does that happen? Williamson County, that's the kind of place this is. And it literally saved my life, gave me a foundation that really led me to the success I am today. More than you wanted.
No, it's just it's super authentic, and I'm grateful. I'm sitting here talking to a friend who has shared a story that I can't do anything except say that feels a little bit like trauma, and you have coping skills that helped you be successful, and you also are a terrific leader, which is evidenced by everything you've done in your life, everywhere. How did so that moment where you were on your own, taken in, coached and received, and then mentored, really, it translated for you into leadership skills. Help me understand what leadership lessons that you have.
Yeah, so when you look back on that period of life, I never thought of it as any regret. When you talk about leadership, my stepfather was a con artist, and he would con his way into us having an apartment, and he was going to be the maintenance man. And so we're moving, we're going to a new place. I got a new job, and that's what it felt like to me. Is like everywhere we were moving, I went to 12 different schools before I was in 7th grade, because he was constantly running for not doing the job that he was hired to do, or bills that he wasn't paying. I didn't know that. I just thought we were moving. I hope this next place is nicer than the place we're leaving. And some of them were, and some of them weren't. But when you go to that many different schools, you meet that many, you learn how to adapt and adjust and make friends, and so I learned people skills really early to get along and to fit in, and I learned how to read people, who are the people I want to be friends with, and who are the ones I need to stay away from, and so I learned some life skills really early, and then when I had a chance to exemplify those in a better setting, people were drawn to me because I was a natural leader. I just had just the easy to get along with, easy to talk to, my stepmother, she one Christmas when we were all together, she said, "I want to just make a statement right now." And she was in her 70s then, and she said, "I want to make a statement right now. Andy was the best of all of you," because
no pressure.
No, he was the best of all of you. He got up every morning, he made his bed, he came up to breakfast on time, he was ready for school on time, and I just chuckled. I said, "Well, you know why? I didn't want to hear those words ever again. You got to go." So I was a good kid. I really took it as an opportunity to, almost like I put on a different cape, and I just okay, this is who I can be now. I can take all the life skills I've learned and I can do them for good. And It's just always the way I've looked at it. So, yeah.
I like it even described as a superpower. In parallel entrepreneurship, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. In parallel entrepreneurship, we are operating more than one company at the same time.
Yeah.
And I've watched you do paralleling and parallel entrepreneurship, which is a different thing than serial entrepreneurship.
Right.
And
which I've been accused of most of my life, being a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, it never sat well with me. I was greatly appreciative of any of these. I mean, you and I have shared some awards, shared the stage, been on shared boards.
Yes.
We've had opportunities to work together in the community and to build employment for our community, and we keep doing it. You know, you are an entrepreneur. You said earlier, you have some superpowers. What are some of your other superpowers?
Well, I have the ability. Sitting on your side of the table, I can sit on that side and understand when somebody is trying to argue a point to me or trying to sell me something or even disagree with me. I have the ability to sit over in that person's chair and hear them and then come back to my side of the chair and express my feelings without it ever being an argument. I've always been able to do that. I've had people come in hot and heavy before. You know, when you're in retail and there's always opportunities to disappoint somebody. You know, when you have employees and you have, you know, food and you have all these elements of something could go wrong in that experience and somebody be upset. I've always had the ability to calm and say, we call it falling on the sword. You know, just be humble and appreciative of the fact that they have a complaint and how can I make it right. And
you're getting feedback.
Learning, always knowing there's, you know, in a heightened conversation, even emails these days, right? It's always heightened to a level that pushes it to an untruth. You've got to not just throw it out for it's untrue. You've got to say, okay, somewhere in this, there's a message that they wanted me to hear, and let me address that message, and let's make sure we can find out what that is. And so when you conversate with people and you just have a conversation, you say, I really want to understand what you're trying to tell me. Can you put it in words that, you know, I can understand, where it's not an argument or, you know, you're not in this heightened state, and see the change in their demeanor that, he is going to listen to me.
People just want to be heard.
They do.
I think first. I wanted to drill a little bit in on this community, sense of community, because you talked about a police officer that intercepted you and brought you back into the Boys and Girls Club and helped guide you.
Yeah.
And there's a public servant. You talked about your own experience at the Boys and Girls Club, and I know you're honored with the Ed Moody Award for Excellence. That's a pretty rare honor.
For those that know Ed Moody, you know that's quite an honor. And 3 years ago, I was put into the Hall of Fame of Boys and Girls Club for the state of Tennessee.
So this is like this theme of giving back. How are we approaching, from a leadership perspective,
right,
from a community leader's perspective, what's happening with our kids, the boys and girls these days, and how can we improve? What do we need to pay attention to?
Well, we got to understand them, right? What motivates them, and you know, every generation goes through this. I mean, we all look. My parents' generation thought we were never going to amount to anything, and
you had long hair and listened to rock and roll,
right? Yeah, you know. So if you look through history, the younger generation has always looked down upon, like they're not going to do it the way we do it, but maybe they do it better, right? So now we have to look at young people, at what is their motivation and what does drive them. I mean, is it, you know, we used to think everybody had to go to college. Well, you don't have to go to college anymore. Now there's different avenues. There's the
Right.
tech world that they start learning tech long before they ever get the opportunity to go to college. Some of them could write college courses by the time they get there. They know how to design games and do all these sort of things that gives them a skill set that we never had, right? We were still fooling around with from a flip phone to a non-flip phone. That was like a big deal.
Calculators.
Oh
they,
my gosh,
they actually
yeah.
existed by themselves.
So you have to understand just and appreciate them for who they are and what their life experiences are. And so our workforce now, they don't want to work like the hours that I had to work to make money. And you had to work so many hours because the pay was so little, right? So I remember when I started working, I started at $1.75 an hour. And so for it to amount to anything, I was just trying to get to overtime. So that was time and a half, that I felt like I was making money. Well, now, the kids, they can make enough money in a short period of time that they can go and do other things. And that's a motivation for them. So now a 3-day, 4-day work week is more of a motivation to keep them than offering them full-time work. And particularly in our world, in hospitality, a good waiter, waitress, they can make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year and be working 24 to 28 hours a week because they have the right shifts and the right attitude and they know how to do it and they make great money. And the rest of that time, they want to use that money to go travel and do other things. So, is
they
that
listen to the work smarter, not harder coaching that they got, and they're actually
doing it. Yeah. So, and I think we're really bad about pigeonhole the whole age group into one box.
Yeah.
And it's just not true. It's you just have to find. I learned a long time ago, even when I was coaching soccer, not everybody is the same. You don't coach everybody the same. Everybody says, "Oh, you got to treat everybody the same." Well, that's not true, because if you treat everybody the same, then you leave some out that have to be taught differently. They may be visual learners as opposed to learned learners. That read and study. I was a listener. I never read well because I listened, but I didn't know till I was age 15 because nobody ever bothered to tell me that I had bad eyesight. And so I take those notes home and they would get ignored, but I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So I always ended up at the front of the class so I could see the chalkboard, or I listened. If I was in the back of the class, I became a good listener. So, there's adaptive learners.
There's a superpower right there, being a good listener.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I love being around the energy of young people, and I just know that they're not in a box. They're thinking differently and doing differently, and that's okay. We're the ones that have to figure it out to make sure that they can be successful on that journey.
Yeah. That's great. And it's a family-run business. A Marshall Family Hospitality. Claire is the president. I got a chance to watch her move up over the years, and really take the company at the helm, and get recognition and growth. Really contribute to Nashville. So. 3 children, 5 grandchildren.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about the Boys and Girls Club. We're talking about family business. What is the dynamic? What's it like to be in a family business, like a legitimately family structured company? I'm curious from your perspective, how does that make you a better leader?
Well, again, I think making sure that each one of my children always knew that this wasn't expected of them. If they wanted to be a part of it, I wanted to help them be successful as being a part of it. But the last thing I ever wanted to hear was one of my children said, "Dad, I only did this because of you." No, that's not what I want. I want you to do it because this is what you want and that you see a pathway. And so when you're in family business, to actually have that family unit part of it, it's a special thing, and it's a pretty rare thing. I mean, we talk about family businesses all the time, and my father and I were part of the family business center that started out at Belmont some years ago. Transitioning families is not easy. So our path was was a little different because Claire's a planner. I mean, she is a smart, read learner. I mean, when she was in college, she was #1 student at MTSU when she graduated. Teachers were having her grade other students' papers when she was a sophomore. I mean, I thought she was going to go the pathway of, Dad, I'm going to get my master's. Dad, I'm going to get my doctorate. Dad, I'm a professor. She had that full potential to do that, but she fell back in love with the family business. And she fell back in love with it from the standpoint of just working between college and what she was going to do next. People were coming to her, and she was solving problems and helping them be more successful. So she had leadership skills herself. But she's always been a real planner. I'm a dreamer, right? I'm a visionary. And dreamers and visionaries are really good when they have someone to execute for them. And she was an excellent executor for me. I started thinking on this pathway, Claire has to figure out how to be an entrepreneur. I've always been able to feel that, and she's never had to really experience that risk or how to really take a leap. She just has taken what I've dreamed up and tried to find a pathway to make it work. So we started an ice cream company together called Hattie Jane's Creamery. And I thought this would be a good one where she would come up with a concept. She would come up with everything that had to happen to make this business work. And I would be 80% business owner. She'd be 20%, and she could run the business. And I did it to help her learn to be an entrepreneur. And lo and behold, I started gifting her my stock, and so she had her own company, and she said, Dad, I'm going to leave the family business, and I'm just going to run this ice cream company. I thought, that didn't work out quite like I wanted it to. But when she built that up to about 4 locations, and she's now got 5 locations in the commissary, she had called and said, if you're ever thinking about transitioning, I want you to know I still want to be a part of that conversation. And I said, well, we should meet. And so because I had a COO, and I was pouring a lot into them because I was thinking maybe that was my path to my retirement, and so bringing Claire back, actually it was Dave Ramsey. I said, I got a COO. Claire wants to come back. How do I make that work? He said, make her president. Between her being president, him being COO, they'll figure it out. One will rise. And sure enough.
And so Dave Ramsey is the king of no debt and manage your finances. Fast forward to today. How's the company financially? How's the debt that you wanted to avoid when you started being an entrepreneur? Yeah,
so the structure is excellent. Well, personally, Dan, I have zero debt, and we own a little debt. And I say little on our house. But the company, we just new debt. That's all we have. We just new debt on growth. And it's, and it's worked for us. We finance a lot of our own growth too.
Right. Customers tell you what they want, and customers finance your growth.
Yeah.
I see so many people getting into entrepreneurship and then wanting to go raise money and go scale and go do all these things before you've served your first plate of food.
Yeah. You've not even built a brand, and you're wanting to franchise. I get that all the time. I got this great idea for a franchise. How many locations you got? Oh, well, we hadn't opened anything yet. Well, you don't have a franchise. You don't even have a brand. Yeah. You got to go build a brand.
I'm enjoying my family experience right now with running a company that's new, a startup, is with our Happy Overall business. And Jenny enrolled in the Entrepreneur Center program, and it's like her own journey into entrepreneurship. So I was really resonating with how you were setting up and enjoying that sponsorship and the advice, the partnership that comes from. A lot of people don't have family businesses. A lot of people are not capable of being in business with their significant spouse, other. And I just find that I get so much joy collaborating on complex problems with her, and she's so smart. My friend Brandon shared a piece of advice recently. Dress so that if someone dressed up as you for a costume party, everyone would know it was you. Now, that's not entirely about clothing. That's about identity, about showing up fully. My wife Jenny and I are leaning in on this concept, both in our personal lives and now in a little startup we call Happy Overall. We're making overalls. Each one is made to order as a wearable canvas for art. Overalls that are comfortable, durable, and expressive. We're sourcing soft, 100% cotton. We're partnering with designers and with local seamstresses who love the artistry of a well-crafted piece of clothing. We're launching in summer of 26, so check out happyoverall.com to see pics and see if anything resonates with you. Fully you, and it'll happen every time you reach for them. If you want to be part of the first run, join our waitlist at happyoverall.com.
You know, I coached my daughters through middle school and high school too, which was a great experience for me. You know, experiencing 3 state championships with my daughters was tremendous. But you also learn through that what buttons to push and what ones not to push. You know, where you cross over from being dad to coach, and that really helped me in the business side as we've gone through business together. You know, we can have some disagreements, but I can't override her because I'm dad. I have to listen and walk away from it saying, well, let me chew on that and let me think on that, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. If I want to immediately say, no, we're not doing that, we're going to do this, I have to back off of that and say, because I'm thinking, oh, I'm saying that almost like a dad would say, I don't need to do that. I need to listen to it, sleep on it, and see if it feels the same tomorrow. And if it doesn't feel the same, then okay, tell me more about that idea. And
so I think that's a superpower of a parallel entrepreneur, is learning how to ask better questions.
Yes.
Even of yourself.
Yeah.
So tell us about your other kids.
Yeah, so
they're kids. They're adults.
Young adults. They're giving me grandkids, right? So they're adults. Emily is the middle child. She's my executive assistant. She was a trained nurse, and she just came to us and said she felt like she was missing out on being part of the family business. At the time, she was a single mom with 3 kids, young kids. And so we put her back into the catering, giving her some flexibility. And then Claire was the one that came to me and said, Dad, you need an executive assistant. You need somebody that you can trust. Have you thought about Emily? And I was like, well, I hadn't. But that's perfect. That's brilliant. So Emily has been my executive assistant for several years now. And then my son Cliff, he was raising up in the business, and he came to me with the proverbial, Dad, tears in his eyes, and I need to get out of your shadow, and I need to do my own thing. And I was like, I get it. I mean, I told my dad the same thing. I worked for my dad until I said I wanted to go do my own thing, and I said, I totally get it. And so he went to Chattanooga and was just going to be a bartender. He was going to step back and just be a bartender. About 30 days into that, the owner noticed everybody was coming to him to solve problems, and he was fixing things and solving problems and making things better. So they made him GM, and then he became their director of operations as he helped them open 2 more restaurants. So he's operating a 3-restaurant company in Chattanooga and doing a great job. Matter of fact, 2 of his 3 restaurants got nominated for James Beard Awards. So he's doing a fantastic job.
So Cliff is out of your shadow and a giant on his own.
He is.
That's awesome.
He is. So proud of him. It's still about the people. It's about the people that run this county, and it's about the people that are served by this county and live here and choose to live here. I mean, look at our schools. I mean, what a great calling card to build our community around is having the best schools in the state of Tennessee. That matters.
Yeah.
That's been the reason so many companies have chosen to come.
When I moved here, I chose Williamson County. We did a specific search on the schools. We chose the school first, and then we decided where we would live.
Yeah. Why would they ever risk that?
Yeah.
Don't risk that with the wrong leaders. Just choose wisely.
I'm cracking up because I usually think in terms of, man, I'd like to run for office, and then I immediately talk myself out of it, right?
Yeah.
And I've got a hat. You brought me a hat,
right?
So I got a big head. I'm gonna have to open it up a little bit here.
That's funny.
So there we go.
It looks
Andy
good
Marshall
on you.
For mayor. I'm curious, like, what got into you?
Yeah.
I think the theme is family, community, building,
faith, family, community,
leadership.
Yeah.
And so now we're both wearing baseball caps in a podcast talking about what is the vision? What is the next vision?
Yeah. So never thought about being in politics, but as an entrepreneur, you're always around it, right?
Yeah.
Because so much of the government can help or hurt businesses, right?
Like immediately.
Yeah. And so I've always been a part of going up to Day on the Hill here in Nashville and making sure that I knew people that represented me, and then over time being on state boards, I've learned people all over the country, right? I mean, not only in Tennessee, but you start making connections around the country. And when I started looking at, we've had a mayor in Williamson County for 24 years.
Rogers Anderson.
He'd pick up the phone when you called.
Yep.
He would meet with you if you needed to meet with him. And we never had to worry about it, right?
A fantastic leader.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably way underestimated because he was so steady of just how good of a leader he actually was. And so when is right. Yeah, he's not going anywhere. He's just retiring. He looking at him finally stepping away, and I started paying attention. Who's next? Okay, who's next?
Right.
Surely we got somebody ready to go. And listen, there are people that had put their name out there, and I met with them. I talked to them, and I just didn't think it was a direction that we needed to be heading in Williamson County, that they weren't connecting with the community side. What makes Williamson County so special? Yeah. I lived it. I mean, it literally saved my life. And so I didn't want to lose that. I wanted people to respect Flat Creek as much as they respected Brentwood. And so the county mayor, when I grew up, it was called county executive. And that's really the description. You're the CEO of the county. You don't have a vote. You're not voting things in. What you're doing is you're negotiating with 24 county commissioners to run this county in a direction that's going to be positive for the citizens of the community. And as well as I do, politics has gotten really odd in the recent years, very polarizing.
It's a part of the why I'm all in or all out. It's just like, that doesn't sound like any fun at all. And I don't want to make it all about fun, but there is something about life that it helps if it's fun. It has gotten difficult.
It's gotten very difficult.
It's going to be taxing. Yeah.
Yeah. My first call was to Bill Lee to say, Bill, because he stepped out of business into politics. Mm-hmm. Bill, do I have any business doing this? Should I just stay in my lane? And he laughed at first. He said, Andy, what are you? Politics have gotten crazy. I don't know that you want any part of it. And then he paused. He said, but I can't think of anybody better I'd rather have as the mayor of my county than Andy Marshall. This is what we all hope for. we all wish business people would step away from their businesses to help us in government. He said, but by golly, when you do it, they'll try to tear you apart because all of a sudden now you're a threat to their system of the way they want to govern.
And because of so many things that you've done, I mean, the attack surfaces are there because you've been out leading, contributing. I remember sitting with Bill Lee in his office, just a one-on-one. And at the time I was with Williamson Inc. We were working on some sanity in the Williamson business pack and trying to anticipate how we could contribute. And I was just sitting with Bill, and he's like, Mark, I'm considering running for governor. And I remember thinking to myself, that's nuts. For the same reasons, because he was very successful in business and continues to be. But also, he had some passions, like trying to give second chance.
The prison system.
The prison system needed some attention and giving people a real second chance. And I actually was a part of going into the prison systems and doing entrepreneurial education, which was quite a learning experience, and watching what a small amount of hope could do for somebody. Right. And in your case, Boys and Girls Club and the ways that you've been giving back, it's just. I'm glad. When I learned that you were running for mayor, I had that same response, like, Andy, what are you thinking? And yet now I have to agree with the governor. I suppose thanks in advance for taking this risk. You're an entrepreneur. You take risks. How did you make this decision? Like he said, I can't think of anybody better.
Right.
And then you said, neither can I. Oh, now what?
Well, I made a few more phone calls just to test and verify. I called Marcia Blackburn, and she gave me her perspective, very similar to Bill's, and gave me even a couple of points of advice. And then I sat down with Rogers and at Puckett's at my quote unquote office table, right? And we're sitting there, and
on the counter.
I said, Rogers, here, you tell me if I'm crazy, tell me if I need to stay in my lane, but here's what I'm thinking. And I'm telling you, the man looked at me with a whelped up eye and said, I never thought this was be the meeting I was taking with Andy Marshall today, but I can't think of a better meeting I could have taken. He said, I don't know what we were going to do, honestly. He said, I've been torn up about is this the right time for me to actually do this if we don't have the right people ready? And he said, I am 100% behind this idea, and you won't hear from me a reason to talk you out of it. He said, I think you would be excellent at it. You know the community, you know the people of the community, and you know how to serve. And this role is a lot about servant leadership, because you have not only elected officials you have to work with, but you also have department heads that are appointed, and so you have a combination. It's not like a city mayor where the city mayor is elected and then he hires everybody. You have to be able to work with other elected officials too, and you've got to do that with some grace, right? They're elected too, so you got to be able to do it together. And he said, you think in a way that will unite this county to where it needs to go to the next step, the next level. So that gave me a lot of confidence. And then I talked to my wife.
Hey, Jen, guess what? It's
so,
not another board I'm going to be sitting on, but...
Yeah, she didn't jump at the idea, but she did graciously take some time to think about it and ask me for some grace while she really thought through it and how it was going to change our lives. And she talked through about all the things that we had worked so hard in our lives to get to this point to where we could do anything. She just never thought it would be politics. And I said, honestly, I didn't either, but I felt called to do this, and I'm so restless about the opportunity. And so she ended up writing me a beautiful 2-page letter. She's a great writer, and she expresses herself well in written word. I'm more of a, let me get in front of you where I can read you and talk to you, and But she wrote this beautiful letter, and then in return, every morning when we get up, we do a Bible study together. So I wrote a Bible study that reflected why I felt like I was being called to do this. How God, when you look at my life and how God has prepared me and the people that He's put in my life, that are relationships. I mean, they're not people that I just know. I mean, they're actually relationships. Relationships that can help this county be better and stronger and move into the future. And I thought that's why I'm being called to do it. And it takes courage to step out of your comfort zone. And that's where God is. God is when you step out of your comfort zone. He's there with you all the time, but sometimes you get so comfortable, you forget about Him, because all of a sudden you start thinking it's me that's got me here. Mm-hmm. God's never let me do that. Never in my life. From where I came from to where I am now, I've constantly had God on the forefront of my mind, that He is planning my steps. So this is my next step.
Yeah. You're about to move with all these skills that you've built, and all these listening skills and observing skills and leadership skills and people skills, and go discover something new. What are you most excited about?
Getting to the job. Campaigning is, I had no idea campaigning could be all that it is. The hours and the work and trying to be everywhere is not the hard part for me, because that's just doing and being there. The hard part is the keyboard cowards on Facebook, on neighborhood apps, that will completely create their own narrative, not knowing me at all, but because they're for somebody else, they've got to create this false narrative about you. I said to somebody today, hey, if you want to vote for the other person, vote for them. But don't make me out to be somebody I'm not. Don't create lies about me to make her the person you want to vote for. Just look at who I am and my history, and look at who she is and her history, and make up your mind. If she's the better person, vote for her, for goodness sakes. But you're not going to hear me running her down. It's just not my way. I'm on message. I'm on point. And so the campaign has been more than I thought. And I was warned. Don't think I wasn't warned. I was warned. But I thought, literally, what are you going to find on Andy Marshall? You Google me and just see what all comes up. It's all positive impacts and awards and all kinds of things, but none of which I was seeking. It was the service that led to those. Yeah,
it's the team.
I just want to get past the campaign, and if I get elected, I walk into that county complex where the people that are running this county, where they work from, and you go around and you just want to meet them and let them know that you're running for them too. You're not just running for the people of Brentwood and Franklin and you're running for them too, because you're going to be working with them every day. And I was expecting handshakes. I was getting hugs and thanks, and I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Well, I told Jan, I said, if I needed any affirmation of why I should be doing that, it was that. It was walking around the halls of the county complex, and the associates that work so hard to run this county coming out and thanking me and hugging me and saying, we're pulling for you. We want you. And that mattered.
I think people just desperately want to have quality leadership and a little bit of peace in their world and feel like they're being led. And I think public servants are so vastly underappreciated. They don't. I had a chance to speak to another entrepreneur earlier in the season, Eve Peterson, who talked about moving from sector A to sector B, going into the government sector and learning the new skills that she already had, but she hadn't really thought about it. And anyway, my thought was that I don't know any public servants that are just mailing it in and don't care about their job. There's too many other jobs around here that you can get. There's a lot of competition for your attention and your time here in Middle Tennessee because there's so much opportunity. All these people that I've ever worked with have been extremely talented and very highly motivated to serve. Yeah, it's a different organizational structure, right? But it is still people.
It is.
People that work with you they're entertainers, they are servants, they are receiving customer feedback. And again, one of the toughest businesses in the world. You get instant feedback on your product.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And the whole experience. Share with me a lesson that you've learned from one of your employees that stuck with you.
If this wasn't so fresh in my mind, I might not have thought of it. But somebody talked about how calm I am all the time, how it's hard to get you rattled. When people are upset, you stay calm and you walk through it. When I was early in my it was actually my first grocery store that I bought. It was Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and I had everything on the line, right? I way overextended where I should be at my stage of life at 26 years old. And a lot of people took risk on me. My supplier took a risk on me. Bill Martin sold me the store, took a risk on me, discounted it because he took a liking to me. And so a lot of people had taken a risk on me. Our first Christmas order, I had a manager. He had managed it before, the store, when I bought it, and I kept him on. And we just kind of co-managed. And he didn't send in our Christmas order, the biggest week of our year, and I wasn't going to get our order. And he came in my office to tell me and shut the door. I had literally lost my cool, and I kicked the door completely off its hinges. And the look on his face, it changed me. I thought, I do not want to be that person. I don't want to lose my cool to the point that I would scare somebody. I grew up under that. That's how my stepfather controlled everything in our household, with fear, with being a big man that could hurt you. And I saw the look on his face, and I thought, don't be that person. And I apologized to him. I said, it's okay. Surely there's something we can do. And we called the wholesaler, and he said, hey, we can get a short order together for you. Give us 50 items you have to have. And we went down there in our pickup trucks. We picked it, and it was fine. And I learned a lesson that if I had taken the time to say to him, it's okay, we can figure this out. Instead, I lost my temper, and then I went to that. But it taught me a lesson that I wasn't going to be that person, and that's not the type of leader. You're not going to get anything out of that. You're not going to get the best out of people by leading that way. And we became really close after that, and so it's not a pleasant memory, but it's one I certainly learned from.
Yeah, my grandfather told me that if I wanted to be successful, I needed to learn from the mistakes of other people. Mark, they're the least expensive kind.
Yeah, study failures.
I think the universe will present you with every single lesson you haven't learned
Yeah.
until you learn it. It's good to learn it once and then make the adjustment, right?
Right. Yeah. You live, you learn, and you don't go back and make the same mistake.
If you were coaching another entrepreneur right now that was trying to start a second business or a third, what would you suggest that they pay attention to?
Yeah. Well, I think the best advice I can give people, and I kind of watch them when they're asking that question. How do I go from 1 to 2, or what's the hardest? 1 to 2, 2 to 3. I get asked that question a lot. I watch them when I tell them my story of getting up at 3:30 in the morning and making biscuits, and I went from 1 to 2 8 years later. That I did that for 8 years of getting up at 3:30 with Jan waking up and handing my coffee to me on the way out the door, and she'd go back to bed, and I'd go in and start preparing. And the only reason I went in that early is because we had these farmers that got up early, and they weren't going to have their biscuits and coffee unless I was there ready for them at 5 o'clock. So I would get up early and just have it ready, even though I didn't open to 6. But they all knew that I'd be there, and so they came. But seeing their reaction as to whether or not they're like 8 years or 3:30 in the morning, whether they're willing to put in the time and effort that sometimes it takes. You don't wake up successful. It's a journey to become successful. And Leapers was not an instant success. I mean, people look at it and talk about it in the context of it, but it wasn't until New York Times wrote us up as the best unknown restaurant in America worth the drive that suddenly we were on the map with the locals. It had to be written up about somewhere else, somebody else's opinion, for the locals to say, "Oh, I love that place," and all of a sudden we became the thing, and our success journey began there. But I grinded it out to make that thing work for 6 years, and then 2 years of prosperity before we said, "Okay, let's see if we can duplicate this."
And you've started and sold several companies. What's the secret from your perspective when it comes time to sell a company?
Oh, Lord. It's a funny thing about entrepreneurs, right? The best time to sell it when things are at its best. And that's the least time when you want to sell it. Because you're always thinking if in multiples. If I did good this year, the next year is going to,
we're optimistic.
We are optimistic.
To a fault, generally.
Absolutely. And I am just like, I tell people all the time, I'm optimistic, and I'm shamefully optimistic because I always think things can get better, and so it's hard to tell somebody that if you don't sell it at its peak, it's going to be worth less later. And it's because at some point you're going to hit a peak and it's going to plateau, and then it'll start declining, and particularly in our industry. The longevity we've had is very unusual. We're 20 plus years into the Puckett's journey, and that's just highly unusual. We're going on 30 years. From 98 to 2026, when we were approaching 30 years on this journey, which is highly unusual. And we've been approached over time, but I just, I was still trying to decide whether this was going to be a business that was passed on or whether this would be a business I'd build and sell. And so I never was quite ready at our peak, and then we hit our slump over the last few years through the economy, coming COVID, and then post-COVID, we had that instant boost with the money that flooded the market, and then the economy was just not good.
Yeah.
And so we see it climbing back out again, but That's usually
It's a roller
entrepreneur's
coaster.
journey. It's never just straight up. It's fighting through the lows and and capitalizing on the highs. And so knowing that that sometimes the best time to sell is going to be when you least want to sell it. It's when you have to sell it that they're hard to sell, and that they're very little value when you have to sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you built a brand.
Yeah.
And I think Puckett's is like an integrated part of Middle Tennessee, certainly Tennessee's brand. What did you do to focus? Like, what did you do intentionally that led to Puckett's being a brand?
Yeah.
And what did you do accidentally that had that same outcome?
So I think it was always about being a people pleaser at heart. So it was the next customer through the door. You know, always. You know, if I was a NFL coach, I'd say it's the next play, right? It's always the next play. You can't focus on what just happened. You got to focus on what's right in front of you right now, and we talk about that a lot in our business. Everything matters in the restaurant business. Everything. And it starts about 20 feet outside the front door, and it's carried all the way through till they leave. And that same 20 feet matters. So we talk about everything matters and the next customer, you know. So you just have to, and there's so many, I mean, there's literally thousands of ways that you can disappoint a customer that comes in to spend money with you, and you have to avoid those. So you try to build a standard, and you try to exceed that standard. We talk about trying to make every customer a fan, right? If you can, the intentional part is to build a brand. You can't be telling that you're a brand. Other people have to tell other people that you're a brand. So you have to build on the customer base that's willing to say, Puckett's is mine. They've got to take ownership. If you can get your customers to take ownership in who you are and what you do, then you're a brand. If you fall short of that, you're a sign. Yeah, you're just a shingle on the wall. Yeah, it's never. And I tell our employees all the time, it's never going to be enough for us to open a restaurant and unlock the doors and see who comes in. We have to be essential to the communities we serve. If we can accomplish that, then we become essential, and it becomes a partnership. The community and your business become a partnership. And if we do that, we've done our job well.
Thanks for joining us on The Parallel Entrepreneur, Andy. An hour of wisdom at minimum, and a lifetime of wisdom for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a wonderful talk. I've missed you.
Yeah, I've missed you too. Hey, thanks for listening to The Parallel Entrepreneur. And thank you to our sponsors, partners, and the amazing team behind the scenes who help make these conversations possible. If today's episode sparked something for you, be sure to follow, subscribe, and please share it. Learn about our growing community at parallelentrepreneur.com, including details on our mastermind and companion programs designed to help you align, grow, and thrive across multiple ventures. And of course, gratitude to every visionary guest who trusts us to share their story. Until next time, keep building in parallel.